Today I'm sewing the Nadia Maxi Wrap dress with pockets and 3/4 sleeve. This dress is specifically drafted to fit wider hips and butt without hiking up in the back. We'll be using the Cover Me Chic Nadia Maxi Wrap dress sewing pattern. Get yours to follow along, the link is in the description. Refer to the pattern for sizing and pattern layout. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. What I'm using now is just a cotton twill, doesn't have any stretch. Then we have single fold bias tape. We want to fold this, iron this part out and use this for the edges. Then we have two 5/8 buttons. These are shank buttons for the shoulder. And then we have the fusible, which we use for the collar. So now that we have everything, we're going to cut it out and get started. Okay, so now I've cut out all of my pattern pieces and I clipped all of my notches. So now I'm just going to mark where the darts are. The dart is on the back, the front bodice, the back and the front bodice, and the back and the front skirt. I'm going to show you here how I do this really quickly. You can use a pen or you can use an awl. It's not a lot of darts, so I don't necessarily need to pull out another tool. So basically what I have is a pen here and I just stick it to the top point of the dart all the way through to make sure it goes through all of the fabric. Hold down the pen and I just pull off the pattern. So right now I have the top of the dart. I clipped the bottom legs of the dart at the bottom, so I'm just going to mark where I clipped it. I'm doing this on the wrong side of the fabric, and then I'm just going to draw the line from the top of the dart to the bottom. You're going to do this on both sides and for all of the darts. This is a quick and easy way to make sure that you get your darts correct and on both sides. I'm going to do this to the front and back bodice and the front and back skirt. But there you have it. So I can take the pen out now. And this is the back where you just sew the darts. So what I do is I do this to all of the pattern pieces, but for the sake of this video I'm going to show you how to do it to one. So you fold the dart and you just put the pin in on one side and make sure it goes to the other so that it's centered, and then you just sew along the line. And now that you know that both of the lines match up, and you just sew along this line. You do the same thing to the other side. And now you sew these lines, and you do this to the back bodice, you do this to the front bodice, and the front and back skirt. So now I'm going to do this to all of those pieces. I'm going to take it over to the machine and sew the darts. Okay, so now that we marked the darts, we have to sew them up. I like to start at the tip of the dart, so it's just a more controlled sew. So you start as close as you can to the edge, and then you sew along the line. So once I finish all of the darts, I'm going to fold it towards the center front and then press. So I'm going to do that to all of the darts. Press all of them towards the center front. So now that I've sewn the darts, press them. I press the front bodice to the center front, press it down. And I did the same for the back, pressed it towards the center back. So put the back over to the side for a minute and turn this to the right side and add the pocket facing. Right sides together and you pin. I'm going to sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance around the pocket opening. Put this over to the side for a minute and go to the back. So the back has a pleat, so I'm going to match the notches. I always clip the center back when it's on the fold, just so that you know where it is. So I'll clip that. And this is the back pleat. So I put right sides together and I put a pin in where the pleat goes, and I'm going to distribute it evenly. So taking the back clip, center back, you match that with the pin, or if you want to stay stitch it, you can, and then you just pin it. So now you have the back pleat. You can stay stitch this, but just for the sake of it, I don't necessarily need to do that right now. So I'm just going to add the back yoke, pin that in place, match the center notch. And you can stay stitch this down, but I like to do everything a little bit more efficiently. So I'm just going to take this and do it all at the same time. So basically you are going to, this is the right side facing the back, match the notch. You're going to sandwich the yoke in between, sandwich the back in between the yoke. So you can sew this all at once, or you can sew it one by one and just go over the seam. I'm going to take this over to the machine and sew here, sew the pocket facing. So we're going to sew the opening of the pocket, 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to trim around the seam, about 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to clip the corners. So you turn it right side out, and then take it over to the iron and press down. I'm going to come back and top stitch it. Before I top stitch, because I want to top stitch everything at the same time, I'm going to sew the back yoke. So I'm going to take this over to the iron and press the seam flat, then I'm going to come back and top stitch. So you can use your regular sewing foot, but I'm going to use this one. Basically it has a ridge here and one right here, so it gives you a good double needle top stitch. It really it helps just keep the line straight. So I'm going to I'll link this in the description below, but it's just a quicker way of getting a really neat top stitch, especially a double needle top stitch. So I'm just going to change it here. You can still use your regular presser foot, but this one is just a little bit quicker for me, so I'm going to change it here. So I'm just going to line the edge up with the edge of the presser foot here, and then I'm going to sew it up. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use the other guide on this, which is this one here. It gives you a really nice double needle top stitch. So I changed back to my regular presser foot because the other presser foot really doesn't work around small angles, just like a long straight seam. So this one works a lot better. You just have to be a little bit more careful. So you can do all your seams this way. You don't want to keep on switching between presser feet, but just wanted to show you a quicker way to do it if you're doing double needle top stitch. It's a little bit better with the other presser foot, but you know, this it works too. Okay, so now that I double needle stitched the pocket opening, we now have to put the actual pocket on. So I'm going to pin this right sides together, matching all corners, and then sew around the pocket edge. Once this is sewn down, I'm going to finish the edges, then I'm going to add the top yoke. Okay, so now that I finish the edges of the pocket, I'm going to add the top yoke bodice. Make sure right sides are together, the pocket is flat, then you're going to pin. You do this to both sides. So I'm going to finish this edge, and then I'm going to top stitch this. So I switch back to the double needle edge stitch. You don't have to. Top stitching is optional for this Nadia dress, but I like it because I want more like a military look for this. So I'm going to do top stitching on just the major seams. And you get a nice top stitch. Like a military influence, which I love. So now we have the front yoke and the front bodice with the yoke sewn on it, and now we're going to attach the back yoke at the shoulder seam. So you're going to put right sides together and pin. So you can iron the stitch and then go over it, but we're not going to do that. We're going to basically take it like this and sandwich it in so that it's a clean finish on the shoulder seam. So pin this here. It's pretty much like a sandwich. You're sandwiching in the front yoke to the back yoke seam. We're sewing the shoulder seams at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now we have the shoulder seam sewn. Take out the pins, and we're going to turn everything right side out. So basically you're just pulling the front. And there you go. So you have a clean finish on both sides. So now we're going to sew the tab at 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Turn it right side out, top stitch it, and then put it here centered on the seam, and add a buttonhole. So here we have the tabs. We have cut 4 pieces for 2 tabs on either side of the shoulder. We're going to sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So going to do a double needle top stitch on the tab, and here I'm just using a regular presser foot. So I use my home machine to put on button. I marked the tab where the buttonhole will start, and this is a 5/8 inch button, which is a 24 line button. I'm going to put it here to see how big it is. It's about right here, which that's 4 down, but I'm going to make it here so that the button can go through and it gives enough for the button stops. Snipping through with the snips. You can do it with snips, you can do it with a seam ripper, or you can do it a really sharp pair of scissors. For this video, I'm just doing it with snips just to get it done quickly. I like this method the best because snips are a lot sharper and you can control that. So basically what we're going to do is pin these in place. You center this on the shoulder seam and you put the edge against the armhole, centering this here. So I'm like going to pin it here just to hold it in place. And then when we finish the dress up, then I'm going to add the button. But for now, I'm just going to pin it in place so when we put on the sleeve, it sews into the seam. So now we have the collar and we have one side fused. So we're going to take this and sew right sides together. Sew it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance and turn it right side out. Simple. To top stitch it, the double needed top stitch. So now we have the bodice of the Medea dress, and we're going to attach the collar. So just with right sides together, we're going to match the notches. I start with the notch on the back, center back. We're going to pin in place, and then we're going to stay stitch everything. Match the notch on the neck seam to the collar. So we're going to stay stitch this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to finish the opening. The bias tape, and we're going to press this open on one side so that we can finish the front opening. We'll take this over to the iron and press this open. So now that we have the bias tape pressed open on one side, you can see we're going to pin it along the front opening, the next seam. And we're going to sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now that we have everything cut, we're going to do an understitch. So we're going to push the seam allowance towards the bias tape, and we're going to sew really close to the edge, about a 1/16 of an inch on the bias tape. Now we're going to take it over to the iron and top stitch it. After you press it, you have to flip the rounded edges so that the collar lays flat. You're going to sew it on the right side at a 1/4 inch top stitch. the top stitch. Now you're going to take it to the iron and press. So now that we finished the edge around the neck, now we're going to sew the side seams for the bodice. We're going to pin this together and sew this up to where the dots are. So this is where the belt is going to go through. So on the wearer's right side, you're going to leave this part open. So match up the dots I just made, just cut so that we see where this is. And on the other side, I'm just going to sew the whole thing at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. After I do that, I'm going to sew the belt. So there's 2 pieces here. I'm going to put right sides together. It's just 1 piece of the belt. Fold and basically sew one side of the short side and along the whole length of the belt. So we're sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, right side. I'm going to leave open room for the belt. So I'm gonna finish these edges, but I'm gonna finish it on this side and this side so that it can be pressed open, because you want to leave this access for the belt. On the other side, I'm just gonna sew the whole thing up, 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now that I finished the edges, I left this open for the belt, I'm just gonna sew on the right side, just top stitch it down flat so that it doesn't, just give it a little bit more stability. So we're only going to sew one side of the belt. This is going to be end, and we can leave the other one open so we can turn the right side out. So I have a loop turner. This is for thicker materials. This is the best way to do it really quickly. So basically what you do is you put this piece all the way down. Make sure it's all the way at the bottom part. Take this part, stick it at a very quick way to turn belt. This is a thicker loop, but they have thinner ones. But this is for bolts. Filter is in there. Stick it, use it to turn the edges and point as much as you can. You just take this over to the iron and press, then put a top stitch in. So now I'm going to pin the belt to the front bodice, to the edge here, and just make sure you leave enough room for the seam allowance. And this cuts off right here. So I'm just going to pin this in place. So then we're going to sew this once we get back to the machine. But for now, we're going to work on the sleeve. So here's the sleeve cuff. This is right side. So we're going to fold right sides together and sew along the 2 edges, the short edges. We're at the machine as well. We're going to sew the sleeve seam. Let's fold this in half, right sides together. So this 1/2 inch seam allowance. So let's take it over to the machine. Finish the sleeves, doing the sleeve cuff. So now I'm going to put this down to a 1/4 inch. This is a sleeve cuff on both sides. I'm going to turn the right side out and press. So now that this is pressed, I'm going to top stitch it. So now that we've finished top stitching, we're going to close the cuff. So this is the angle side, and that's going to go on the bottom layer. And this is the not so angle side, is going to go on the top. You're going to match this to the notch right here. So now that we have the sleeve sewn and finished on the inside, we're going to attach the sleeve to the sleeve cuff. So this is the front of the sleeve. You can tell by the one notch here, the back has 2 notches, so make sure this side is up. And this is how the cuff should lay. It's the slanted side at the bottom and the not so slanted side at the top. And we're going to match this notch with the notch on the bottom of the sleeve. So we're going to fold it right sides together, put this in here, match the notch, and then pin all the way around so that it can be sewn. We have the sleeve sewn together. We're going to do 2 rows of the widest stitch so we can ease in the sleeve cap into the armhole. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go midway between the notch on the side and the dot. So I'm gonna start here and end on the same side on the back. So now we have the bodice, and this is the armhole. This is the wearer's right side. So I finished the seams and basically top stitched this part. So now I'm attaching the sleeve. So we're gonna match the front notches to the front notches and the back to the back with right sides together, matching the seams. And match the dot with the shoulder seam here. And ease in the sleeve cap. Only one that you'll ever love. So now that we have the sleeve attached and I've pressed the seam, I also finished the seam inside. So we're going to now work on the skirt. Put this aside, we're going to work on the front skirt. So this is the front skirt, and I'm going to use the I'm going to use the pocket facing, and I'm going to pin it right sides together. You match the notches here. To the right side and press and come back and top stitch. So now that we have the facing stitched and we top stitched it with a double needle stitch to match the chest pocket, so now we're going to add the actual pocket. So this is the pocket facing, and now we're going to add the pocket with right sides together, matching the edges, and then you just pin. So now we're going to sew this around the edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now that we have this sewn and serged around, clean finish, I'm just going to pin to keep the pocket in place. Then I'm going to attach the back skirt, and I already put the darts in this one as well. Pin the side seam, matching the notches. So now we've sewn the side seam, and now we're going to sew the back seam. You can do this either way. You can either sew the back seam first and then sew the side seam, or the side seam and then the back seam. So you match the back notches, 3 notches back here, and pin, and then we're going to sew this, take this over to the machine and sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance and finish the edge. So now that we have the skirt sewn, we're going to attach the bodice to the skirt. So you match the side seam of the bodice and the side seam of the skirt. So I'm using twill, so this is a really thick. So you just have to make sure that you collect all of the fabric. So then I match the darts, the bodice dart with the skirt dart, and pin. And then I'm gonna pin, make sure the pocket is facing front. So make sure the pocket is facing front. And then you match the front edge here, and making sure when you actually sew the seam allowance at a 1/2 inch, you do not sew the belt with it. So I changed the press-up foot to a 1/4 inch foot, and that's what I'm going to make a narrow 1/4 inch hem. And because this fabric is so thick, it's like a thick twill, I might have to adjust it when I'm going over the seams. So what I'm going to do for the seam is I'm going to snip it at an angle just to get rid of some of the bulk. So now that we hemmed the bottom, the 1/4 inch clean finish, we're going to do the last step, well, next to the last step, and finish the front. So I already pressed this open. This is a single fold bias tape, so I only press one side open. We're going to pin along this line, just leaving about 1/2 inch past the top. We're going to pin this in place. We're going to sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to do the same finish that we did around the neck. Sew the bias tape to the front skirt, and you want to make sure that you sew right where this intersection is. So in order to do that, I'm just going to mark on the bias tape side. You can see through it so you can see it on camera. Line it up right there, so you see that's where the intersection is. To understitch some on the bias side. That I pressed it, I fold excess under, fold it, pinning on this side because I'm going to be sewing on the top side at about a 3/8 top stitch. So some nice clean finish at the bottom. Same thing at the top. Fold over and pin so that it's a clean finish. You can pin the whole thing if you want, but I don't necessarily need to. But if you feel more comfortable, so that you make sure that you catch the bias tape. So the last thing we have to do is add the button to the tab. So I'm just going to take a pencil and I'm going to mark at the edge of where the buttonhole stops. So it's right here if you see. I'm going to put the button right on the seam. So now that the button is on, I'm going to the button through the buttonhole, and there you have it. So you do this to both sides, and then your dress is complete. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to download your Nadia dress pattern. See you in the next video. Peace.